All right, so good to see you, and I'm super excited to share a subject today and also to introduce you to a very good friend of mine. So this is Dr. James. He is going to be chatting with me a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, so supplements, but this is the guy that is the heart and soul of part of True Life Medicine in Colorado. I've had the pleasure of working with him for 10 or more years, I forget. And so I want to turn it over to him and just ask the question about supplements. People so often ask me, should I take a multivitamin? Why? Who's it for? And so I want to just turn the conversation over to you and just say, as a practitioner, like, who are you? Where's your stance on this subject? And who's it good for?
Well, Aimée, thank you, of course. And yeah, I look back over those 10 years and think, where did they go? Of course. And how we started way back in the beginning. So, yeah, my name is Randy James. I went to the University of Kansas as sort of a traditional MD. Kind of knew I was going to go into family practice. My father's a doc and a surgeon. And while he was going through some changes in his practice, this is way before alternative medicine was ever any kind of cool. And so I was his guinea pig. So for a long time, I've been thinking about these things and doing all kinds of supplements. Fast forward after 10 years in the military and then starting True Life Medicine here in Colorado. So for, I think we can say, a solid 8 years, I've been doing functional medicine and in the trenches, in the business world, trying to provide a product that people need, that they want. And of course, supplementation is a part of that. So we think about it a lot.
For sure. And I recall when we started our business relationship, we would battle back and forth about supplements because you always said to me, Aimée, remember, supplements are supplemental. And the core of, I remember you pulling out the functional medicine book, and I hadn't heard of functional medicine. I was practicing it, but I didn't know it. And so you brought up some really key points about, we don't blanket supplement and we don't live on supplements. And so you made these statements that were so powerful and they made me think. So expand on just from practice and also from education. So who are you seeing that you think specifically a multivite is a great idea for?
Well, so we have actually set up a process when we have a new patient come in, and in our vernacular here in the office and terminology, we actually have a whole appointment, and part of it is built around what I would tell them, hey, here's my supplement philosophy. And I think that's kind of what you're asking is, what's your philosophy of supplementation? And so right off the bat, I would say it like this, that to take a supplement is a philosophical decision on the front side, on the very front side. So of course there's, well, what's in it? What do you look for? What kind and what brands and makers and all of that. But whether or not a human being is going to wake up every day and go to bed every night and say, oh, I've got to take that pill, is going to be something that's in their head more so than a symptom that they're feeling and that they're treating. So right off the bat, I would say, if we can, now I have to say one other thing, especially to Aimée, it's a philosophical decision that is based on science, right? So there is scientific evidence that we can make a philosophical decision from. And so without going into all of the papers and the science, I would say to a layperson audience, we can probably agree on the fact that we live in an industrialized society, that the soil of the entire world, whether we get stuff from Chile or America or Kansas or whatever, that the soil is different. And we kind of already know that the vitamins and minerals and fertilizers that people use, nobody lets the land lie fallow anymore. So the point of all that is to say that food today is different than food in the past. Mm-hmm. Then you throw in, we know our microbiomes are different. Mm-hmm. We know that genetics have shifted. We know there's now epigenetics. And now we also know that we are 3 or 4, maybe 5 generations into this industrialized food production society, world. So when you go to the normal grocery store and buy anything, you probably can't even determine where it came from.
Okay,
It's
that's
based
kind of
on
scary.
that. Pardon me?
That's kind of scary.
It's kind of scary. And even if you called up the head business guy of Kroger or Walmart or whatever, they will tell you, well, no, it's certified organic. But even if it's organic, and maybe even if it's from the United States, you will never be able to trace the farmer down and say, okay, what kind of fertilizer did you put in there? Right? Now they can say, well, the government certified I didn't put any pesticide in there or glyphosate or something like that. But how did you grow the plant? How do I know that there's magnesium and selenium and other trace minerals that ought to be in there? And the answer is you can't know that. And so based on that, I'd say take a multivitamin.
Okay, so
That's
food
it.
supply is deficient-ish.
And we know that. There is science that says.
Okay, and my favorite subject that we've had this discussion a lot, the human microbiome is such that maybe you're not absorbing what, because it's not what you take and eat, it's what you absorb. So then the case being, philosophically, take a multivitamin.
That's where I come down on it, right? And so and I have to be careful because as an MD or to a patient, now this is a doctor-patient relationship, I'm going to be held to a standard of care that says, well, and the standard of care basically means what are other doctors doing? And they might be slathering peanut butter on you as a nutrient supplement. And if I don't do that, then I'm not behaving according to the standard of care.
Right.
So then I have to be very careful and then imagine that, have a relationship with a patient to where we're on the same page, because they are going to decide to spend time and money and effort to take this thing. Now, here's another interesting thing. If you go out 12 months from when somebody starts to take a supplement under a clinician's direction or order or something like that, how many people, what percentage of people are still taking those a year later? And it's nearly none. It's so low. So we are back to, it's a philosophical decision. It's a lifestyle decision as to what do I believe and what is going to determine my behavior. And so as you and I have always said, supplements are supplemental. And so I would never look at somebody and say, oh, look, you need to stop spending money on your gym membership and shift it over here to a great multivitamin. No, if finances are the issue, then you first spend money and resources on excellent nutrition, on a warm home, and all of those kinds of things. And then if there is a reason, and we just went over a reason, industrialized food production and those kind of things cannot give the average American person the kind of nutrients that is going to create most people being sufficient. What we know now is if you take guys off the street, there's going to be insufficient or almost deficient in something. And so through my lens, I'd say, okay, if there is available resources, time and money and effort, it's okay to take a multivitamin. Is it likely to help or likely to hurt? And I would say it's likely to help with consistency over time. Of course, again, if your marriage is okay, your sleep is okay, you've got a good job that you like, and those kinds of things. Those are the key important things.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but without blood work, right, we can, as practitioners, and you especially, over time, we see the consistent issues, whether it's, from actual clinical science testing to anecdotal evidence, which we know I love some anecdotal evidence. And so looking at where I know you always err on the other side. And what I'm hearing you say is, if you as the practitioner, if I walked in your office, I would most likely have those issues. And so it would be a great fit. And it would be reasonable to say, I'm going to have an industrialized issue, a toxicity overload issue, a on-the-go lifestyle that doesn't include a lot of whole, real foods, most likely some lower sleep, lots of things that are obviously common. You can look around and everybody around you says that. So then when we are on the subject of supplementation, but specifically multivite, it sounds to me that it's a pretty good blanket idea.
I would agree.
Okay.
And
then go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I agree if somebody is paying attention to all those other things. That's just the one big caveat is most people will say, well, I've got a crazy job, I've got a crazy lifestyle, I'm going to take a multivite to fill in the gaps there. And I'd say, okay, but to an intelligent person, I would say, but you can't keep doing that forever.
Right.
You've got to change your crazy lifestyle in order to be becoming the kind of person you want to be. The multivite is in there to maybe fill in the gaps and stuff, but it isn't enough to rely on.
Okay. So one of the things that you had mentioned is that look at somebody a year from now, and not to go down a rabbit trail of lifestyle, philosophical decisions, self-care, not to go down that rabbit hole today, because we will have another conversation about how you transitioned from MD military life to when we met, large practice, to now you're in functional medicine with this beautiful model you're offering. And so we'll have that conversation another day. However, today I'm a little curious, just in the short version. So what do you do with that patient they start feeling better, that becomes a multivite becomes one of the layers, a tool in their proverbial toolbox? What do you do with those people that a year goes by and they've stopped? And to the compliance issue. So what do you do these days?
Well, so the first thing that we do is we never use the word compliance.
It's a heavy word.
Or I would say, we don't say non-compliant patient. I would say we mostly have non-compliant doctors. We have a system that doesn't meet people where they are, that doesn't understand the finances and the frustration. And one common thing is just the pill tolerance level. And you've probably had that experience too. You just wake up one morning, you're like, I just don't want to swallow those things, or like if I'm in bed and I think, oh my gosh, I forgot to brush my teeth, I'll get up and go do that. But if I think, I forgot to take my vitamins, I'm not going to get up. So it goes back to time, money, and effort. Mm-hmm. And maybe another one on there, with Brené Brown and this whole vulnerability question and what's our perception of our own need, our own vulnerability. And so to you and I, of people who are mostly well, it's not that I battle a headache every day or something like that. There's not a pain that reminds me, oh yeah, I'll go take that thing. It kind of goes back into the other categories of exercise and sleep and going to bed on time and meditation and those kinds of things. And so in my family, so as a patient of myself, which everybody technically is, by the way, you are your own chief medical officer. It goes back into setting up my life and rearranging my habits around what my goals are. Mm-hmm. And if I want to be running a 5-minute mile, then I can't just sit around and think about it. You've got to train. Right. If I want to have a relationship with a teenager, then I've got to, deal with a teenager. And so, yeah.
Like you looked into my life this morning is what you're saying.
Yeah. We probably had some similar conversations.
Yes, we did. Yes, we
did. Oh, goodness. And so
Bill is entertaining.
Then you wake up one day and you're thinking, my goodness, I haven't taken that for a while. And then you go back to the question and say, well, is it valuable?
Exactly.
And if it's valuable, then spend time and money, effort on it. And so my relationship with my kids is highly valuable. And even though it's not easy, it's not convenient, it's not any of those things, I'm going to let something else go and put time and money and effort and energy into this place. And of course, the priority with our kids is going to supersede that of our supplements, but we're going back to the normal everyday, things like brushing your teeth. And so for my family, we took it down a notch. Like, well, you and I haven't talked for a while, but we've actually got an autoimmune condition in my family. And so for that one kid, the priority is up a little bit. And just to say, hey, help me. Why don't you remember to take your supplements and stuff? But,
yes.
We don't take them on vacation. And so I kind of say, hey, Monday through Friday, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're going to really get our habits down. There's a little bit of leeway on the weekends, and if we're on vacation, there's even more leeway. That's where we've kind of landed. Now, if somebody's got a medical condition that we've elevated and said, okay, now we're out of the sort of supplement philosophy and now we're more into therapy, that's a different story. And I would change the time frame and say for the next 30, 60, 90 days, this is 100%, right? Don't fail.
Fanatical.
Be fanatic about it for 90 days and then let you assess.
Well, in Dr. James, one of the things that you, as you're saying this, as practitioners, even as friends and loved ones, what I'm hearing you say is, and correct me if I'm wrong, number one, it's relationship. The relationship that we have with the patient or with the client or with, the whomever, that relationship that's been built on, trust, and that they can say what they need and we can help them unravel the puzzle and put it back together in a way that includes many different layers of tools in the toolbox. One of which, today's subject, a multivite. Then on top of that, creating some ideas that surround self-responsibility. Okay, these are your goals. I'm here as a guide. Here's some self-responsibility. Because we all have, ourselves included, those things that happen in life. And if this isn't a lifestyle decision, we won't do it. We won't do it. We don't see value. And especially when we look at children. So that's where I would just say, ending the subject today really is, so quality, filling in gaps, and really taking responsibility as the practitioner to say, we need to have that relationship so that we know what they need. And moving into the Brene Brown side, where's the pitfalls? Where do we know they're a start-stop person? Do we know they're never even going to pull it out of their handbag? I mean, those are things that we also do, right? Lifestyle connections. And so I love this conversation. I love looking at, it's more than a supplement. It's a whole body idea. And this is just one of the tools in the toolbox. And we have a lot of different subjects that we want to unpack together. But is there anything else that you would want to add to the idea or the value of, yes, fill it in, get a gap filler?
The relationship you said, we even call that our chief cornerstone or our chief plank in our platform of True Life Medicine. And I would say in there, regarding supplements, is your relationship with yourself. And maybe even your relationship with those darn pills, right? Like, so if you've ever taught a kid how to swallow a pill, if they look at that pill like an enemy or like something bad, then it's hard to go down. But if you're like, hey, this is good, this is helpful, so there's this underlying relationship with nearly everything. Starts with self, your faith, your family, and all those kind of things. And of course, supplements are way over here, but still, people can have that mindset of, you know what, this is good. This is going to help me. It's going to be a gap filler. And then it just becomes it's like brushing your teeth. It's not going to make you feel more energetic or, like a 5-hour energy or a caffeine or things like that. That's not the point. It is because of what we just said. There's a philosophy behind it, so therefore I'm going to do it. And then you just mentioned quality right there. And to be honest with you, I have looked at so many companies, talked to so many reps, talked to so many booths at the meetings. I'm sick of it, quite honestly. The sort of drug rep relationship, or now it's a nutraceutical rep relationship. So I look for trust actually in the company. A relationship with the company, and who are they, what are they about, how are they setting things up, and again, of course they can pull the wool over my eyes just like any other company. So it is hard there. And so on the flip side, I think I go into the online world and everybody calls it the Wild West, and I say I have a healthy amount of skepticism and distrust. And so when people come in and they say, I love XYZ brand, I'm saying, then go for it. I mean, if they want me to evaluate it, I will, but if they love it, that trust is there, and that's valuable.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Agreed. Because again, right, we want to encourage people to become more familiar with what they need, want, and desire, how they feel, because they need to drive their own health train. We're just there as a guide, right?
They are their chief medical officer, or they're the captain of their ship. I work for them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not coming to me to get told what to do.
Always. Always. And in a world, I cannot wait to have this conversation, that in a world where you even mentioned it, they're looking for what is the norm, and you're not the norm. You're there for people in a way that is so much bigger, and I say so much better. So just in that functional medicine model, I will put in the notes how to touch base with you and your team to have that opportunity, since you do have opportunities to work online and in person. And so I'll put your information out there, and I really look forward to having that next conversation, because I find it fascinating. I was in the transition with you as you transitioned into this practice and this way of serving people, and it has just been beautiful. So, but I appreciate you and your time.
Aimée, thank you. I look back on those years with fondness. It was fun. I learned a lot from you as well. So anytime we can have those kind of conversations, it'll be good.
Incredible. Well, I'm Aimée Darling. Super excited to share whole health, but simplified. So thank you.